Okay, welcome to another Orbiter Spaceflight Simulator video. Now in this video I want to take another look at the upcoming version of Orbiter, and from all appearances it's going to be called Orbiter 2015. Obviously we're getting very close to the end of the year 2014, and Martin indicated obviously that Orbiter 2014 is not going to happen, but we'll probably be looking at Orbiter 2015. Okay, so I haven't had a chance to spend a lot of time with this, so I'm going to be sort of learning a little bit about this with you guys, but I did make a few notes here, some things that I've observed. So let me go ahead and switch camera views to the big view here. And one thing I'll note too, and this isn't terribly relevant, but I actually wasn't able to record this any sooner because when I was using the inline client, it was flickering so bad when I was recording that the video was just unusable. But fortunately, last night, Jamarnik, I forget how to pronounce his name. Anyway, he's the developer of the D3D9 client. He updated his D3D9 client, and now that I'm using the D3D9 client, I'm able to record videos again, and there's no flickering. So first thing, we're obviously looking at KSC, and this has been greatly enhanced. If you compare to the standard look at, how Orbiter 2010 looked, even if you updated the tiles and everything for Orbiter 2010, this still is quite a bit better. Martin said he's been spending a lot of time lately, specifically in and around the Cape Canaveral area, trying to make it look as good as he possibly can, just to kind of showcase what's possible with the new level of detail. I believe this is level 19, and Orbiter 2010, I want to say level 14 was the highest. And with regards to KSC, a very important update is that you can now use it. If you go back to my March video, or actually I think it was April 2014, if you remember, I pointed out that the runway at Cape Canaveral was so lumpy that you couldn't even fly down the runway. It would just, if you went full throttle on the main, you would just, the runway was buckled so badly that you would literally bounce up and down as you were going down the runway. Now, we all know that runways aren't perfectly flat. They all have some curve, convex, something to them, but it was so bad that it was just absolutely unplayable. It's still not perfect. I still see a few bumps here and there, but it's a whole lot smoother than it was, and it's certainly possible to use it now. So that's one of the updates that I've noticed. I haven't really seen any updates, or haven't noted any updates to the Delta Glider cockpit, but this, I haven't spent enough time with it to really be able to pinpoint small things that might have changed. But this, to me, looks like the same cockpit that we had back in, again, April or May or whenever it was that I was last looking at this. Another thing that I noticed that changed for the better is the bases on the moon, or at least the base on the moon, the default base, Brighton Beach. If you recall back in my April video that I showed, Brighton Beach was actually floating above the surface by 2 or 3 kilometers. But if you look at it now, I just switched vessels over to the Shuttle A, which is on the moon. It's still not perfect, but and you'll see here, but it's better. When I say it's not perfect, you can see that the landing pads are sort of, they almost look like moon dust has blown over top of them, like shifting sand dunes or something. And I'm also seeing a little artifacting there in the background. I'm guessing the video recorder got that. But it's better than it was, at least now. And here I'm seeing too, you can see the mountain in the background. It's just missing textures there. But you can see now at least that the base is on the surface, more or less. I think there's still a few areas here and there where it's got issues. But that's a huge improvement, at least, because before Brighton Beach was like 2 kilometers floating above the moon's surface. It was pretty bad. And I think Martin even said somewhere in the thread, that's a long thread, so I haven't read everything, but I seem to recall him saying something like, this is not going to be released until these types of things are fixed. Obviously, he's not going to put out a Orbiter 2015 with these sorts of problems. Otherwise, I think most of the patching stuff has been pretty well addressed. When I say patching, I mean, again, going back to the old video, when I would kind of do this, tilt the camera around the moon, there were just huge holes in the moon. And I'm not seeing that anymore, but there is still visual stuff that's not pretty, just stuff appearing and disappearing. I don't know if that will be enough of an issue to get fixed or not, because typically, ideally when you're flying, you want to fly, from the cockpit view, and you're not going to be, you only need enough visual to see what's around you. When you sort of do these sort of out-of-body experience type of views, it's not a very realistic example of what you're going to see when you're actually flying. So let me zoom in a little bit. One thing I noticed was kind of interesting. I was kind of warping time forward to the 100,000 just to kind of see how the shadows would play out. So let me do that again here. Again, of course, as the moon, moves and rotates, the sun is going to be in a different position. You can sort of see the shadows moving across the hills here. So let me go to a faster time warp. See kind of what that looks like. And of course, the moon having such a slow rotation cycle, 1 day on the moon is about 14 days. So it takes a while, even at 100,000 time warp, for the sun to kind of get into position there where you can start seeing the shadows form. That's a little thing, and maybe other people don't really care about that, but I think it's pretty cool because, again, going back to Orbiter 2010, everything was flat. So there were no shadows really. It was basically, it was either lit or it was dark, and that was it. But now you can see, you can get into areas behind these hills where it's, you're in the shadow of the hill. So that's kind of cool. Let me switch back over to KSC. Of course, when I switched cameras there, you can see, or when I switched from one body to another, you could see all that redrawing stuff happening. Not a big deal there. Something else I put in my notes is that the orbiter documentation has not yet been updated. Of course, I wouldn't expect it to be, but just as a note, if you try to go looking into the docs, for any reason, you're going to see that nothing has changed. There actually was something else I wanted to show on the Shuttle A. If you switch over to the 3D cockpit, this 2D panel, I'm sorry, this 2D panel is quite a bit different than the Shuttle A panel that was in Orbiter 2010. However, it's not completely brand new because you could actually have updated Orbiter 2010 to have this 2D panel, and I guess probably the big deal here is like this 8-ball type of thing. That was new, and I remember if you updated Orbiter 2010, I think it was Orbiter 2010 P1 or P2. I'm actually forgetting the patch numbers, but if there was another like unofficial update past that one, and if you did that update, then you would see this version of the Shuttle A. but it looks like this is going to be the standard the standard 2D panel in Orbiter. Presumably 2015 is what it's going to be called. All right, so let me see if there's much else. Again, I'm kind of learning some of this stuff as I go through this video because I haven't spent a ton of time with it. I think I talked a little bit in March, April, how this view has changed. This actually does have something new about it that I've noticed. At least I didn't see it before, so I think it's new. If you right click on this panel, you now have the option to have it show as labels only, and I don't remember seeing this option before. So if you want to have a more minimalistic view and have this up all the time, you can have label view only. These views over here on the left and right can be changed. I've got one set for frame rate just so I can kind of pay attention to how what the frame rate's like. But you can turn those off. You can turn off the whole panel up here, or just put it on hide or auto hide so that goes away. The info bars can also be hidden so that you don't have any, obstructions. That would be preferable if you're doing recordings, playbacks, things like that. You don't want a bunch of cluttered technical information. So that's a little bit different. The only thing that I actually don't care for myself is I've been very used to pressing the letter I on the keyboard to toggle some of the information displays, and that's now gone. And apparently that's actually been gone with certain updates in Orbiter 2010, certain unofficial updates with Orbiter 2010. But I'm actually sorry to see that go, because I use that all the time, where I would just press I to be able to toggle the frame rate on and off, the information. As far as the other visuals go, I can't really say that I've seen any updates. Again, if you refer back to the video that I showed earlier this year with the mountain views and everything, all that's about the same. I haven't seen any significant changes there, but the really big change is just, the tile set here around Florida. I should mention that this update is a 2.1 gigabyte update, something like that. So it's not small. And the new version of Orbiter is going to be pretty huge. But there is discussion about how they're going to do it. I think there's going to be a functional version of Orbiter that's only going to be a few hundred megabyte or maybe a gigabyte. But if you want it to really look good, you're going to want to get all the tile sets and everything. That's going to increase your Orbiter installation by dozens of gigabytes, probably over 100 gig when it's all said and done. But it's really looking quite fantastic. So looking forward to seeing kind of what more will be coming in the future updates. So that's all I have for now. Again, I just wanted to kind of show off some of the new stuff here. The runway is now usable. The bases aren't floating 2 kilometers above the surface anymore. Some of the holes that I was seeing in the old textures appear to be gone. And so, yeah, I think we're making good progress. And it'll be interesting to see how all the add-ons progress. There's a lot of add-ons that a lot of us use that really, we can't have Orbiter without those add-ons. So if they don't get updated, then it's going to be hard to make that transition. For example, burn time calculator, Aero Brake MFD, that's a huge one. Burn time calculator, all these, Base Sync, Wide Awake International, Carl Sagan Space Center, all these different updates. If I'm very curious how long it's going to take some of those core things to get updated, because I think there are actually still people that use Orbiter 2006, or at least have it installed as a separate installation for no other reason than some of the updates that they knew and loved never got addressed in Orbiter 2010, so they don't work with Orbiter 2010. I'm a little worried about that for my own sake, because I've been, I don't have tons of add-ons, but I've got quite a few add-ons that I really rely on. So I would hate to make that transition to Orbiter 2015 and then no longer be able to use IMFD because the developer has fallen off the face of the earth or something and isn't doing anything more with it. I don't know. We'll see. So check for links down in the description below, and I will see you in the next video. Fortunately, last night, Jamarnik, I forget how to pronounce his name. Anyway, he's the developer of the D3 D9 client. He updated his D3 D9 client, and now that I'm using the D3 D9 client, I'm able to record videos again, and there's no flickering. So first thing, we're obviously looking at which camera views to the big view here. And one thing I'll note too, and this isn't terribly relevant, but I actually wasn't able to record this any sooner because when I was using the inline client, it was flickering so bad when I was recording that the video was just unusable. But obviously that Orbiter 2014 is not going to happen, but we'll probably be looking at Orbiter 2015. Okay, so I haven't had a chance to spend a lot of time with this, so I'm going to be sort of learning a little bit about this with you guys, but I did make a few notes here, some things that I've observed, so let me go ahead and... Okay, welcome to another Orbiter Space Flight Simulator video. Now in this video I want to take another look at the upcoming version of Orbiter, and from all appearances it's going to be called Orbiter 2015. Obviously we're getting very close to the end of the year 2014, and Martin indicated at KSC, and this has been greatly enhanced. If you compare to the standard look at how Orbiter 2010 looked, even if you updated the tiles and everything for Orbiter 2010, this still is quite a bit better